Hey, look, I want to thank you guys again for coming back and attending. I really appreciate the attention that you're giving this, and I hope to continue to provide you good value today. I'm pretty sure I recognize everybody on here, but if there's somebody who doesn't know me, my name is Steve Little, and I own and operate two ventures, Activist Capitalist and Zero Limits Ventures. And through them, we help companies develop and implement resilience and rapid value growth strategies for business owners of all kinds. So, the objective here is to use the principles that we've used now for many, many years to boost valuation and to boost growth in companies so that the owners can realize the gains they want now or in the future, right? So, we didn't do the recording last week, which was a technical error on my part. I am recording this one, so we'll begin to queue these up in a library for replay later. But I did want to spend just a minute and sort of recap what we had talked about. The first thing we went through, and then what I want to do is have you guys give me some feedback on whether or not you took that assessment and what you saw there that was interesting. And then I'm going to go into the next set of drivers. But what we started with was how a number of key factors, not only, but including the effects of COVID-19, have created a really extraordinary opportunity for small and medium-sized businesses right now. And, once people start to sort of wake up from the shock of the whole thing, they start to realize that there are new ways that they can approach their business that will actually make their business more recession-proof, more resilient, and actually get them on the road to fast recovery, and even in the end analysis, build a better, more valuable business, right? You might remember that if you attend to the 24 new fundamentals that we're talking about, you're gonna be in you'll have a much higher quality business. And that has some implications I'm going to talk about again real quickly today. Remember that there was already a lot of money parked on the sidelines looking for high quality investments. That's companies that follow good fundamentals, not just aggressive growth opportunities. So where at one time, the investment world, the acquisition world, actually the financiering world of all kinds, we're really focused on growth at almost any cost. And that caused a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs to sort of forget about some of the fundamentals, which actually weakens the foundation of a company. And I'm sure Anissa could attest to the fact that when we start doing our assessment, our analysis of a company that has asked us to come in and either raise capital or get them prepared for acquisition, we find these, it's like Swiss cheese. There are these really horrible holes that exist in their structures, and they're huge value constraints, and the company is therefore not able to position themselves as a solid, resilient recovery, or in this case, growth-bound company for value. So it's important that we attend to those things, and those are the things that if we can sort of backtrack here, use the context of the information I'm sharing with you on these live streams to shore that up and to fill those holes and gaps, that you're going to end up with a business that's actually up and running much more aggressively, much more growth oriented, and producing a much greater value return. We also talked a little bit about how there's a very significant shift towards impact mission companies versus those driven purely by bottom line margin growth. And that what's happening there is we're seeing many business financiers, be they venture, family offices, whatever, are pulling back from the market. They're sort of afraid to move forward because they don't really know where they are economically. And that's, I think, a big mistake on their part. And it certainly makes it more challenging for business owners to secure capital, particularly in a time when they need capital reserves to sort of weather through this. But there are impact investors that are moving very aggressively ahead with large capital infusions, small pointed capital infusions of all kinds. And what they're looking for are companies that have within them structures and commitments to contribute to social good in some way. And we talked a little bit about how we could leverage that. Then we also talked a little bit about how, there are now several trillion extra dollars that have been injected into the market. And while there are some risks of inflation that are out there in the future, what we want to do is get your business in a position so that you won't be affected by a downturn like this again, or like that. And you'll also see that that capital will start moving aggressively into the market. I'm predicting Q3 and Q4. Others are thinking a little further out. Either way, the foundation that you're building by observing these 24 fundamentals is going to help you take advantage of that recovery whenever it actually occurs. I think that we shared a discussion or some information that, a lot of the changes that we're seeing in business that have been imparted on the way business is being done are not just short-term changes, that they're things that'll probably be more permanent than temporary. Obviously, meetings like these and other types of virtual infrastructures will become more critically important to the business. And as I mentioned to the group as we were getting started, I attended a meeting last night with a bunch of very, very, very successful entrepreneurs. Each of them had developed, had utilized all kinds of technical innovations and other methods to really fill this gap and turn their face-to-face sort of presentation and speaking meetings into very effective online infrastructures that really have continued to grow and do extremely well even during this difficult time. We talked a little bit about the 24 fundamentals. We talked about there being 18 sort of more traditional core ones. I'm going to share that list with you at the end of the presentation, and that there's 6 what I refer to as less traditional drivers. We talked about that it's the same fundamentals that drive value that we use to help our clients achieve 200 to 400% value gains in their respective markets, and that those are the same factors that you can use to immediately initiate recovery at this time through this economic turmoil and position your business to capitalize on this massive recovery. We talked about focusing on tracking and progress that you can literally instrument your business, and that allows you to control recovery and drive value as opposed to being at the point of effect of market conditions. You'll have a much more stable foundation. I think the illustration I used was like the deep roots of an oak tree. They're there, they keep that tree anchored and safe. The tree can continue to bend and move as it needs to in the wind, but it's not going to come out of the ground, right? And really, it's all about improving the quality of business. I gave you access to an online assessment. Hopefully, we'll have some conversation about that as a group. And the idea is there that first pass will show you pretty much where you stand in terms of the first 18 fundamentals, so you'll know where to focus your attention to generate the most momentum into this resilience and recovery plan. And anyone who wants to look at the next level, you'll see that as you complete that assessment, there's an opportunity to click a button basically and get connected into our advisor team. And we can talk about what it takes to get to a deeper dive and do deeper analysis on those value drivers. I shared that the single biggest recovery value driver is impact mission, and how it can be used to unify your team of stakeholders and to a common set of goals and objectives, which immediately initiates recovery, reduces risk, drives value, right? So just keep in mind as you go forward, you're going to be looking for opportunities to make an impact mission visible throughout that entire network of stakeholders. Then I shared a 4-part strategy for you to immediately engage your stakeholders. That's customers, employees, partners, and investors in active recovery right now. That creates deep, high-value, trusted relationships with all stakeholders. It ensures the viability of their business in this economic crisis and beyond, reduces risk of ownership, and initiates rapid recovery, and of course, again, enhances value. The strategy was to immediately contact your team of employees, partners, and investors, that's all the stakeholders, and begin implementing highly visible impact mission activities. COVID-19 sort of creates the perfect opportunity to do that if you don't already have an impact mission. But I think you can see that there are lots of ways that you can reach out to all those stakeholders, ask them what you can be doing to help them, and then implement activities, strategies, or products, whatever it might be, to drive those value propositions to the customers, or to your network, I should say. You want to engage your customers to help them through, engage your partners to help them through. You might try to renegotiate win-win-win agreements if you have some that are flexible enough to on that. And then you also want to focus some attention on your employees, bring them together, get their fears, uncertainties, doubts, their concerns out on the table, and work directly and sort of confront those head on, and come up with ways, initiatives in the company that can make them safe, make them feel good about what they're doing, retain them is critically important, and make your business more sustainable in the short term. So the overriding perspective on all of that was, by acting and not reacting in a well-planned attention to 24 fundamentals, you'll weather these challenges, face in the short term. You'll secure your company and your market in the medium and long term, and you'll drive aggressive value growth beyond that. And that was all in our first meeting. So that went a little long, but we covered an awful lot of information. What I want to do today is I want to start by getting some feedback from you on what your experience was of the information I shared with you. Then I'm going to map out a plan for the next few fundamentals so you'll know what's coming. Then I have a set of principles I want to share with you. I got a lot of feedback from the group that was there last week about this whole concept of value drivers, and what is and what isn't, and how they actually work to create recovery and secure your business. So I want to spend a little bit more time on that today to give you a little bit more foundation, and then hopefully there'll be time to do some Q&A. And I also have, if there is time, I want to drive more deeply into one of the next value drivers, so we can sort of get underway in looking at the 18 traditional ones and the 6 less traditional ones. All right, so first, let's get some feedback from you on what your experience was of the information, or perhaps if you took the discovery assessment. Let me know well, just show of hands, who took the discovery assessment? Okay.
I did.
So Chris, how about you?
The assessment was interesting. It made me it made me feel tiny in comparison to what my ego thinks how big the company is, which is great. It's it was a little in my it just presented me with a really stand with everything, which was incredibly helpful. Last week we talked about stakeholder conversations, and I took that to heart and called my biggest client. And I'm telling you, Steve, I was nervous as shit making that phone call, because I've never asked them, hey, what do you need? How can I make this stronger? What is it that I can be doing to help you through the COVID? What is it that we can be doing together? Are there things that you need done that I'm not even thinking of? What are your pain points, et cetera? And this woman was very over the moon that I called her and had this conversation. And she says, I tell you what, I want to brainstorm with you, because I really think you could take this to other clients and build your company. I think you have something good going on. And it was just it was an amazing conversation. And again, I had a little fear going into that.
Sure.
And that literally was the same day we had this conference last Wednesday.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I encourage you. I want to congratulate you on having the courage to make that call, Chris.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. I'm glad I did. And since then, I've had one more with another smaller client, and he was blown away that I was asking him these questions. I mean, he's really, he hasn't produced income for me at all, but I have faith that his company is going to grow enough where I'm going to see some return. And that conversation happened this morning before this. So now I'm on a roll. Now I want to do it to everybody. That was my experience.
Yeah.
More people on this call than just me.
Yeah, well, it's sort of surprising at first, right? I mean, you don't really anticipate that it's going to be quite that easy, so to speak, right? Once
Nope,
you
I'm
make
gonna
that
mute you.
contact,
My dog's going crazy here.
that's okay. Once you make that contact, it makes all the difference in the world. And you're the reaction that your first client had is exactly the reaction that I would anticipate, right? So while it's sort of difficult to get yourself to do it, clearly it has a huge impact on building the deep trust. And remember, what's underneath of everything we're talking about is the reduction of perceived risk. So, when you have deep relationships with the people you do business with, customers, employees, partners, and investors, right? That trust is the foundation for a level of security, a solid level of trust gives you the basis for all the things you need. I remember when I used to coach executives, I used to remind them that, look, at the end of the day, it's just people talking to people. I mean, we get all wrapped up in NLP and all these influence techniques and funnels and orange buttons, green buttons, purple buttons, right? But at the end of the day, it all comes down to people talking to people. So when you reach out and you treat a customer like a person, which is what they are, you establish a deeper relationship. And those relationships are the things that make your company resilient, recovery bound, and engaged in the market. So congratulations on that, Chris. Anybody else want to share? Missy,
Sure.
Matt?
Sure, I'll read you this. It's only 2 lines. It's not long, but so we decided to send out an email basically to everybody that's included in our business, our manufacturer, distributors, people that we have pending business with, this and that. And we decided it would come from my email. So it just simply reads, Missy and I sincerely hope this email finds you and your family safe and healthy as this virus continues. Just reaching out, as with you being a part of the Cat Tongue Grips team, we'd like you to know we're thinking of you. All the best. And that was it.
We got great feedback.
I mean, the responses we got back, every single person got back to us and gave us an update that they're all doing well. One of them has a brother that's ill. And but they also, almost the ones that we have stuff going on with, gave us a business update also.
Yeah.
Which we didn't even ask for. So, it moved things forward just by being kind with a couple of sentences. And then we had the opportunity to respond back, when they responded to us and said, hey, wonderful to hear you're doing well. Please continue. We're thinking of you, and stay safe, and we'll all get through this together, kind of thing. So it was cool, Steve.
Right. Those are magic words right there. We're all in this together, right? I mean, that is exactly what it is we're looking for. And that's why I want to go back to what I said as we started the other day and as I recap today. You're creating deep relationship, right? So every chance you get might be a good idea for you guys to follow that email up with a phone call. And just keep nurturing the relationship. And what's interesting is they're going to start querying you to see how you're doing, right? And I used to say to the people I coached is that the ideal scenario is when your customer gets to a state of vision. And what that means is the customer is envisioning themselves using your product or service, right? When you start hearing things like, we can do this, and we can do that, and we can use it this way, and we can use it that way, right? Now you actually have the partnership that really makes your business solid. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure.
You're no longer just a merchant. You're part of who they are. You're part of what they're doing. And that's super valuable. Anybody else? Yeah, jump right in.
So I took your advice and pulled my team together, and we did a virtual all hands meeting And I felt like that was a really nice way to connect with everybody. And we're very small, so it was easy to do in this type of a format. And, you know, people who have not come to our in-person all hands meeting in months actually called in, and we had our videos on, and we just literally went around the room and everybody talked about, you know, their sort of current status, both in terms of work, but also personal. And I think it really helped everybody just, yeah, connect as a company. And I got really positive feedback. One of my, actually my lead virtual reality developer also teaches yoga and meditation. So I had him walk in, which of course is a little outside the comfort zone of a lot of people in technology. And I gave everybody the option of like, if you want to leave now, you know, you can, if this is just too weird for you. And everybody stayed on except for one.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, it was needed. I also took your business assessment, and just to give you some validation, we had gone through an actual company evaluation just a couple months ago, and your quick little assessment was spot on. It was like almost exactly the same as the valuation that we spent like $10,000 to get. So good job.
Right. All right. Well, that's excellent. Yeah, it's a pretty powerful little tool when you understand what it's telling you. And that's great, a great approach. I really love what you did there. And what's fascinating to me is just like Chris mentioned, he was uncomfortable making that first call. You had some discomfort with introducing the concept of yoga and meditation, right? Because that's just not something that we think about as business leaders as being important. But what's interesting is that, do you do meditation at home?
I do. I've been doing it a lot more now.
Well, of course, everybody's now, right?
Well, right.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's beneficial, right? That's the point, is that you do it because it's beneficial to you. And so then the question becomes, well, why do we keep that sort of cloaked behind the curtain of
Right.
something we do, but we don't share with others, right? When in reality, that's one of the most powerful mediums that you have. Missy and Matt and some of the others joined us last week before our live stream. We did a 3-day Ho'oponopono meditation series, which was a very uncomfortable scenario for, you know, somebody of my background to do years ago. But when I adopted the practice 15 years ago, it became part of my everyday. And now it's just part of who I am. And people who work with me know that that's what I do. And they don't have to like it or dislike it. They don't have to have an opinion at all, but they get great benefit out of it, and especially if you can share it with them and they're able to utilize it for themselves, right? So congratulations on that. That's really terrific. And don't, you know, I'd say nurture that, right? Because it's going to make them more solid, make them feel safer, make them, give them power that they don't otherwise have. That's going to make your business a better business.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right.
First of all, back back on to Missy and Matt. That may be a second email, as you could send out. You were on a webinar and you heard about somebody doing a meditation for the people on there. Your second email, send out, hey, we're still caring about you. We heard about this thing. Give us a ping back and let us know if you want to do this. We'll get everybody on a meditation, brief little meditation, and we'll do it. So that might be one thing. Another what you did is say, you know, we got thinking about this and we got some great feedback, and here's some of the feedback we got from people on our emails. We're going to work towards creating emails for you, our customers, that you could send to your customers. Let us know power together, and we've got some partners that can help us, and we're going to put together maybe a series of 1, 2, 3 emails you could send out.
That's a great idea, John. Also, a really interesting concept is, you know, you might even go so far as to start hosting a meditation with them and start cross-pollinating your customers.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times a customer is using a product or a service in one way that's different from the way another customer is using the product or service, and they just never thought of using it that other way. You put them in the same room or on the same call, They share information about, just like we've done here, what worked, what you like, what's, you know, what's not as good as you want it to be, whatever. And, you know, they get into design. They get into that place of vision where they're now designing uses for your product, right? That then obviously creates more deepening in the relationship, and it drives, could drive revenue for that matter, but, you know, it drives the relationship more effectively.
One other thing for myself from personal last week, like Chris, I called a client and I was apprehensive and scared calling this client because they're in the oil and gas business. So they're getting hit with a double whammy, not just the virus, but due to the oil gas pricing. And I figured, oh, this is not going to be a good call. But the first thing is I called them. It was Friday morning. And I said, so what you doing? And he said, oh, we're painting. We got nothing else to do, but so we're painting the house. And I knew a kid. And so I said, they're young kids. So I said, what you're doing then is having the kids draw on the wall and you're going to paint over top. And he said, no, we're not going to go down that road there. So number one, that gets to the personal side, the trusting. And then basically what come out of that was like, Chris, this guy told me, he said, look at John. He said, right. He's we're right now what's happening is I'm paying the truck drivers to haul the raw oil, that and the producing part. They're getting paid. Everybody else gets whatever's left. But he said, for you, John, contacting people and companies we contacted in the 1 to 2 year range. The last 2 years, we got to go back at them. He said, I know there's stuff out there. We just got to find it. So do that for me.
Yeah.
So my advice on that is pick the customer that you're most afraid to call and call them.
There you go. Sounds familiar to Chris?
Oh yeah.
All right. All right. So that's really great feedback, and I'm glad you guys took it on and stepped out into that uncomfortable place, because it all, you know, what I've found in business over the last 43 years is anytime you're uncomfortable, if you'll take the step into that discomfort, it's always a reward in there. So, you know, just anytime you have that, just realize that, well, the gold is in there, right? This is all about that refiner's fire, purifying gold and silver. You end up in a much better place every time. All right, so I'm looking at the clock. I think we've got enough time for me to run through this if it's okay. What I wanted to respond to was the number of people who have reached out to me and asked me about, you know, this whole issue of these fundamentals and why they're so important in terms of recovery and value driving. And it occurs to me that a lot of the people I spoke with don't really have a clear understanding of what I mean by a value driver. They think in terms of valuation only. And while it's true that value drivers increase valuation, I think what I want to communicate is that I want you to see that it's a deep impact on the value of the business. That translates to value for your customers, value for your employees, value for your partners, and value for your investors. So it's not only about valuation. The reason that we're able to get premium value on the transactions that we do is because we're helping companies become very high quality entities, and the buyers can see that they're getting a higher quality asset, which has a very specific, clearly drawn roadmap for value growth. So the formula, there's no mystery. There's no risk to them. They see that the company is executing a plan. They see the plan, they understand the plan, and they see that the company is making its progress up that plan, so they can see with high degree of certainty where the company is going to be in the future. And that's why they're willing to make larger investments in the short term, because they're going to get the value gain. Think of it this way. If you were evaluating my company, you were looking at buying my company, and if every time in the midst of due diligence, you looked at the actual performance versus the projected performance, and I was either doing as well or better than I projected, what would you be motivated to do? you'd be motivated to move more quickly. Because what you'd see is that every day that I'm gaining on that plan, I'm taking value. That's value you're going to have to pay me for because it's now mine. I'm the one that grew from here to there. I'm the one that opened this new channel. I'm the one that you see. So I expanded my business, the value of my business, and you're going to have to pay for that. Well, that's value you as the acquirer want. So you want to buy or acquire my business more quickly so that you get the value gain. You're going to execute the same plan because the plan is what's producing the value. You see what I'm saying? So this is why focusing here creates this resilience and recovery. That's the link I want to keep reiterating to you guys. It's not just about getting more money for the business, although it's also about getting more money for the business. It's really about how this visibility helps you build a better business. Let me give you another quick illustration. Who on this phone, on this call, just raise your hand, has a clearly defined exit strategy for their business? Okay.
We do work with Steve.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Okay. All right. Well, let me tell you that that is not at all unusual. When I do speaking engagements, or used to do speaking engagement, I guess, I'd ask that question. Or when I ask a company that I'm just getting started with, I'll ask them what their exit strategy is. And I typically hear one of two things. Either we don't have one, which is at least honest, or something like we're going to grow it and someone's going to buy us, which is also interesting, but not a strategy, right? And what I want you to hear today is that the exit strategy is not about the exit. It's about the strategy. And here's why. Think of it this way. In every business, there are multiple potential buyers. Every buyer is going to value your business uniquely. They're going to value your business based on some calculation that they do that relates how much more valuable their business will be by owning your business. So if a business, for instance, is interested in acquiring you because you have a great customer acquisition and retention methodology, whatever that is, online, offline, doesn't matter. But you're able to acquire customers, serve customers, and retain customers better than they can. And what they want to purchase is your company. They care about revenue and earnings and all the rest. They care about the other factors, but they're principally driven by, we want to incorporate that customer acquisition methodology into our business. So what they're actually saying is, we have product, we want to buy a market. So they're willing to pay a certain amount of money for that market. Does that make sense so far? Okay. There's another buyer who might be looking at your company saying, wow, you know, I want their brand advantage, or I want their intellectual property, or we need their people. A lot of times you get acquisitions because they want your great people. Either way, any of those might be an alternative to customer acquisition. Again, do they care about customers? Of course they care about customers. Do they care about revenue? Of course they care about revenue. But their principal motivation is one of those other factors. Let's say it's brand. Now here's the thing. If you knew that the company who's interested in you to get to your brand would pay 8 times earnings, while the company who is interested in your customer acquisition methodology would pay 6 times earnings, and you had $100,000 to invest in your business, where would you invest it? Would you invest it in brand expansion or customer acquisition?
Brand.
I hope
based on the X factor, brand.
Brand, exactly. So just that little bit of information shows you that I'm going to get a greater rate of return investing in brand than I will customers. I'm going to make investments in both. But what I'm going to know now that I did not know before is that my investments in brand have a 2-point higher value gain implication for me than my investments in customer acquisition. Does that make sense? So think about having that perspective throughout your entire set of business metrics, where you would know which ones and how significantly the value gain expectations you can adjust based on your investments in those areas. It gives you an entirely different lens to control your business, knowing that the more value you create, the more resilient, the more growth oriented, right? The more successful and more valuable your business will be. So this is why I say to people, look, you need an exit strategy. It can change, and you don't have to be committed to selling. But if you don't have a strategy, then you don't know what's driving the value of your business. So, and when I ask that second question, I'll say, do you know what drives the value of your business? 100% of the time, it's not even a challenge. 100% of the time, the business owner says, what do you mean? Like revenue and earnings? Why do they do that? They do that because we use revenue and earnings to calculate valuation. But I want you to remember what I said last week. Valuation is not the same thing as transaction value. All of those other factors that we're talking about here are the things that drive the real transaction value of the business. Look, I just looked it up the other day. I use Snapchat as an example, right? I mean, if it were revenue and earnings, then you could not explain phenomenon like Snapchat. They have no revenue, they have no earnings, they have $31 billion market cap, right? So it can't be revenue and earnings. It has to be something else. And that's the point. If you understand what's driving the value of your business, you can make better decisions. You can make value-oriented decisions. You can make decisions that make your business more resilient, more recovery bound, faster growing, and of greater value. So far, so good? Okay. All right. So, here's the thing. Sorry, go ahead.
It's very comforting to know that there are multiple factors of the business.
Transaction value.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
And that's really the secret to the work that Anissa and I do on a daily basis, right? So Anissa, by the way, is our project lead. She drives all the different projects that we do. So she knows this one in spades. And she spent many, many hours with us late nights coming up with value pivoting strategies that really drive enormous increases in valuation to the companies we work with, right? All really focused on getting the fundamentals in place, right? And that's part of why we're going to go through each of these drivers over time, right? All right, how are we doing here?
Great.
Good.
So everybody's good on that principle, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. What I want to spend a few more minutes on, well, looking at the time, you want to do Q&A or do you want to do the next driver?
Next driver.
Okay.
Driver.
Okay.
Next driver.
All right.
This is good stuff.
All right. That's no problem. I'm happy to do it. Yeah, that's why I asked myself the question. All right. So last time we talked a lot about impact mission and what that's all about. And you guys have already sort of started moving in that direction. Some of you reached out around COVID, which is tremendous, but stay focused on bringing your team together. Well, I know, I think I remember hearing a story, Jonathan, maybe at the end you can share your story about bringing your team together, but it's really about finding that unifying mission and then making that part of the core identity of the business. So we're not talking about a bolt-on, right? One of the worst examples of that I've ever seen is when Kentucky Fried Chicken started promoting their cause of breast cancer, they literally put a pink ribbon on a box of carcinogens, right? Didn't make any sense, right? And any value-oriented business owner would look at it and go, what are you doing, right? So it has to be deep. It has to be something that's a unifying force for people. So therefore it has to be visible, okay? So we talked about that last week. The next one I want to talk about is really sort of the second most significant non-traditional value driver is social intelligence. Now, what do I mean by that? It involves using digital communications and social media, but not in the context of likes and follows, or, volume of things. It's the depth of the relationship that you create with your social channels. It's about community building, right? How do you create a deep relationship with a broad audience of people, be they customers, prospects, partners, or other stakeholders, right? So to sort of give context to this, when I was building software companies out in the Bay Area, this was a long time ago, but it was all enterprise class software. The transactions were $1 to $3 million a piece. And in order to do that, as a sales guy, you had to have a relationship with the person you're selling to. That meant you had to go to their office, you had to take them to dinner, you had to play golf with them, you had to ask them about their kids, whatever. You had to develop a deep personal relationship in order for them to have confidence in you to make the kind of investment they were making. So what do we do now? I mean, we're in a digital age, and now we've even been sort of quarantined away from each other. So it becomes increasingly difficult to develop those relationships, or so it appears. But if you can utilize the infrastructures and the tools that are available now, you're able to create the same net effect in those deep relationships. I mean, what Matt and Missy, what you did, and Chris, what you did, you took a huge step into deepening those relationships, and those secure your business. So social intelligence is referring to an understanding of the interactive relationships you're creating socially with your clients. So it involves social media, certainly, but it's beyond that. It's about community building. It's about, maybe there's a situation where it might make sense for you to create like a product users group, right? And you have a meeting every so often where you share, new innovative ways to use a product, and everybody's getting benefit out of that. And then pretty soon you have those people coming to contribute their ideas on uses for the product, right? So it creates a community of interest, and that's when you really start to get this multiplying effect. I'll give you a quick illustration. Some years ago, Anise and I worked on a project. It was a tremendous little company. They had covers for your car seats for your pets. So if you have a car, you don't want your dog ripping holes in the seat, you put one of these car seat covers on. They sold through Amazon. Their product was more expensive. It was higher quality, but it was far more expensive than anybody else's product. But they were the #1 rated product, for a long period of time. They had, I forget how many, I want to say something like 15,000 5-star ratings or something, just an astronomically significant community of people. And when we realized the depth of the relationship they'd created, it wasn't just about the stars. When you opened the comment stream, these were deep 30 or 40 communication comment streams where the customer was sharing pictures of their dog, and they were sharing pictures of their Dobermans, and they were talking about their behavior patterns, and they were, so-and-so loves this and thus and such loves that. And, so they were relationships. That gave us several extra points in value. That's several extra multiple points, having those reviews. So that was deep relationship, right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. Understanding how to create those relationships is what social intelligence is really all about. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the way that you can do this today. Now, I've got a special guest here. One of the most interesting ways to do this now is in the innovative area of podcasting. I don't know of anybody who knows more about this than Melinda, and she's built a platform, and she'll share that with you. But really what I want you to focus on, if you could for just a minute, Melinda, is talk to us a little bit about facilitating community and this kind of social impact using a platform like that. You're muted.
All right. Hey, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Steve. So there's a couple of really interesting intersections taking place here now. And I've always believed that the best content is actually conversation. And so podcasting is this rocket ship right now, even before coronavirus. 123 million Americans were listening to more than 6 hours a week of podcasting. And there were a lot of trends that were driving that. But from a business owner's perspective, podcasting develops this trust that Steve was just talking about, because people get to know you over time, especially if you are being authentic and whatnot. So it's a really great way to really cement those customer relationships. If you take it further, though, and add a layer of engagement around that, where the people listening to the podcast can also engage with you and each other, and they're rewarded for doing so, it creates a really, I mean, just a kind of an exponential effect. And the technology now exists to be able to do that. And it's one of the reasons why we've created a podcasting network called Podopolo, which is the first ever socially networked and gamified podcasting network. And I was going to talk briefly about gamification as well. But when you can connect people, there was a glimmer of this conversation a little bit earlier on, Steve, when you were talking about, you know, getting your customers together and they're all using the product slightly differently. There's this added value created each time there's that connection of your customers in new or different ways. And so too with any kind of social community, so that the more people are engaging and other people are coming into it, and you are actually the conduit for connecting people. Each time you connect people meaningfully, you're creating value. You're creating more value, more trust, more value, more trust, et cetera, et cetera. It gets even better when you're able to really reward people for doing that and incentivize that kind of behavior and create those sorts of communities. So we just happen to be applying that kind of philosophy around podcasting. So creating a socially networked, gamified podcast network, where in this case, everybody who's interacting with each of the podcasts and with each other and with the hosts and all of that are winning rewards. Sponsor driven, rewards, or podcast driven rewards, free things, products, services, all sorts of things for engaging, sharing the content, commenting on it, engaging with each other, suggesting content to podcasters, but also putting the lessons learned from podcasts into their daily lives. And as they do that, they unlock different levels of achievement. This is all socially validated as well, with like high fives from other people in the community, so they feel good about doing it, they get results. And now to impact mission, because this is a media company, but it's also a consciousness company. And by that, what I mean is we have a very big mission driven impact as part of this company right out of the gate. So people can get together and do random acts of kindness, say in the COVID context, or deliver food to elderly people or food banks, or solve different problems or parts of what they're able to do in the context of COVID, or any of the UN 17 global goals, or just volunteering or raising money for charity, or all of that. And as they do that, they win rewards and prizes and all of that kind of stuff, like right out of the gate. And there is a wonderful know, like, trust of connecting people, making people really feel good about their contribution, making people feel really good about connecting, providing that kind of safe space for them to find other people like them who share interests, share circumstance, share the use of your product. There are so many different derivations of it, but it's extremely powerful. And some of the research too on gamification in that social context, broadly speaking, businesses that use gamification have a 30% higher valuation growth, 30% roughly higher in revenue, profits, earnings, just about everything. Gamification, if you don't know what that is, I mean, it's simply game theory. The stuff that makes your kid addicted to Xbox, or playing games, applied to a non-gaming situation. So that's where people feel they get rewards, prizes, they up level, they have a sense of achievement, a sense of social validation for participating in a community, and it makes that community just so much more valuable than anything else besides. And so it's pretty powerful. And out of the gate, with this being relatively early stage company, really in launch mode, we're finding that it immediately, like the sale is so much easier for the podcasters coming in, for people wanting to use the app, and for sponsors and advertisers who really want to be associated too with that level of engagement and a way to interact with customers that they want to, have buy their products and that kind of thing. They want to be in that engagement, and they also want to be in that mission and have that shine on them as well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Melinda. I appreciate you sharing all that. It's really incredible. And this is why I said in the very beginning of all of these streams that the opportunities that we have now are really bigger than you can possibly have imagined before. This forced us into reevaluating how do we establish relationship. I mean, guys like me, we're used to just getting in a car and driving to a customer's office and hanging out. That's the way we do business, right? But I can't do that now. So I'm, so this has actually forced me into a position where I can reach more people, provide more value more effectively, and develop community. I mean, I hope that we can develop relationship here that will sustain. As I said, I'm committed to do these things right on into the future until you guys get tired of hearing from me. And, that to me is the most valuable thing we can do. So that was a great point, Melinda. Thanks for sharing that. All right, so we're coming up to the end here. What I'd like to do real quickly, if you indulge me, is I'd like to quickly share my screen so you get a sense of what's coming. I keep talking about the 24 new fundamentals, and a lot of people are saying, when are you going to get to a fundamental? Well, we've covered 3 of them, but let me just show you what they are so that we can sort of operate from I gotta find a way to share my screen here.
Down at the bottom.
Yeah, I got it. I'm technically challenged. You all guys already know it. So let me see. How do I advance these things? There we go. So you guys that took the assessment probably saw some of these already. So if you look at sort of the 18, what I'm calling the 18 rapid recovery drivers, the first set is 9 market drivers. Here they are, is growth. Now this is your growth strategy. So the growth of your business as it relates to the growth of the market you're in, as it relates to the growth of the competitors in the market you're in. And you'll get more detail on that as we go. Large potential market, or really this is about market size, your relative position of dominance in the market, whether or not you have a structure for recurring revenue, what are the barriers to entry, and there's lots of different barriers. There's market barriers, legal barriers, product barriers, lots of different, IP barriers. There's product differentiation, brand, margin advantage, and customer diversification. So those are the 9 sort of outwardly focused market drivers. The 9 inwardly focused operational drivers are things, the company overview is really what is really the purpose of the company, the mission of the company, sort of all of those elements of the company. What is your business about? The deep financial understanding of the business. This is both in terms of historic performance, which everybody has. Some people have some projections, but what we want to do is give you a discipline where you can see, a reasonable view of 5 years into the future of what will happen as you go, particularly when you get your hands on, and get a handle on all these recovery drivers. You'll be able to produce a much more effective prediction model or projection model. Your sales and marketing methodologies and strategies, the way you enter the market. This is all about go to market. Then it's the operations stuff. How do you actually function as a business day in and day out? What are your customer satisfaction methods or infrastructures? What does your senior management team look like? What is it got to look like in the future, right? What is your human resources plan? For some businesses, there's a lot of contractors and a lot of 1099 people. Other ones want to use agencies. Other people want to hire people. It really depends on their business. Then there's the legal aspect and all of the innovation that can exist. So these are the 18 that you'll encounter in that business discovery assessment. Then, of course, there's much more detail involved with each of these at the next level. Then the 6 rather rapid recovery drivers. These are what I refer to as sort of less traditional value drivers. These are the ones you won't hear any other broker, banker, or financier talk about. Is impact mission. We talked about that one the other day. Social intelligence, we touched on here today. Data strategies. This is, as you engage the market and interact with your customers, there's a lot of data that you need to be mining to really develop a deep understanding of who's buying, why are they buying, what are they buying, how are they using it, how do they feel about it. There's tons of data there. That data becomes an extraordinarily valuable asset for you, and it drives an enormous amount of stability into your business because you can get more predictable with all of your investments, but more importantly, it creates a huge value driver because, again, think about you being the person evaluating the quality of my business. If I'm able to produce data-rich reports that show you how much I know about the behavior of my community of customers, you're going to see a much lower profile of risk associated with owning my business, right? Then there's a lot of momentum, particularly for larger companies, many of whom aren't here. But when you start to build out a team, you need to look at diversity. Diversity is an important aspect. Not only is it beneficial for you to get a more diverse perspective on the operation of the business by bringing other people of different genders, races, and affiliations that way. But you're going to build a better business base, and that's going to, again, reduce risk, increase value, make you more resilient and recovery bound. Then there's this whole element of consciousness culture. We talked a little bit earlier about introducing meditation for the first time to a business, and that's really about helping people sort of get free and really be authentic in their participation in your business. And there are pillars of consciousness that you want to really focus attention on. And we're going to go into that in more detail. And then the sixth one is what I refer to as an activated culture. This is really clearly defining your corporate values, having an understanding that your business is doing right by your community, no matter how broad or narrow that community is. It's an institutional demonstration of compassion. This was really building on the exercise I gave you guys to do last week, which is to reach out to people and tell them, you ask them what you can do to help them. That's a demonstration of compassion, right? So you want to institutionalize that into your company. So it's not just something you do now, you want to be part of what you do all the time, right? And then you want to look at how you develop activated leaders from within your company. That means people who, by virtue of their involvement in your business, will develop these habits and develop these skills for themselves, and continue to advance the business as part of the cultural fabric that makes your business what it is, right? So that's where we're going over the next however long it takes, right? So I hope that's encouraging to you. That's pretty much what I have prepared for you today. I'm happy to answer questions. A couple of quick reminders. If you haven't checked out the Discovery tool, you should do that. If there's something in there that suggests you want to talk more or connect with an advisor and get some more detail on that, you have a facility to do that. We can make that happen for you. If you're ready to go to the next level and take a deep dive, just hit the advisor button and you'll be routed to us and we'll get you plugged in. And then certainly between now and next Wednesday, any feedback, any requests, anything you want me to attend to, anything you want to prioritize, just let me know through email and we'll try to accommodate as many of those requests as we can. So, questions?
Well, that's awesome. So I guess we all have some work to do.
Well, I either did a great job or a horrible job.
Great job.
Great job.
You did a great job, Steve. I have a quick question for you that piggybacks on Melinda's information.
Okay.
Do you do anything with AI, artificial intelligence, or know somebody who does?
Yes, I think there's several different yeses. So Melinda has an AI mechanism being built into the platform that you're referring to. I'm involved in a company in Southern California that writes educational AI applications. So, you know, they develop AIs, typically focused on education, but it could be any kind of AI. So there's two ways that we work with AI.
And Shayna has an AI.
Shayna, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because what I was thinking, if Melinda wasn't working or built AI into what she's doing, I think that would be a very good thing.
Oh,
to
it's
do.
vital. Yeah,
You're
it's a
already
vital
doing
part.
that.
Yeah, it's a vital part of our business model because basically, as people interact and whatnot with the podcasters, that informs an AI and behind it, which allows us to match specific sponsors and advertisers to podcasters, thus solving a major problem for podcasting, where 85% of podcasters don't make a dime because they need large audiences right now to be able to attract sponsors because there's so much guesswork, like no one knows who's listening. And so we're solving that problem. And the AI is a huge part of that.
Okay. All right, gang. Well, look, thank you again for your attention. We went a little long, but I think we covered a lot of ground. I'm excited about the next call next week, and you know, we'll keep moving forward. Again, check out the Business Drive Discovery tool. Let me know if you're ready for a deep dive and provide any feedback on email between now and the next call.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you,
good.
Steve.